Morning, everyone, and welcome today to our MSc Pre-Registration Nursing Studies Adult webinar. We're joined today by Ingrid Rutherford, who is the programme leader for the programme. Ingrid is going to talk us through a short presentation, and throughout, please feel free to ask any questions you have in the chat box, the public chat box to the right-hand side of your screen, and we will do our best to answer any queries you have. Just a point to note that we will be recording this webinar for anyone who can't attend today. So just to bear that in mind that it will be recorded. Okay, thank you so much. I'll hand over to Ingrid. I hope you all enjoy. And yes, any questions, just feel free to ask. Thanks.
Okay, so welcome everybody, and I will have probably spoken to a number of you already if you're already in the chat room listening to the session live, as I'll have spoken to you at interview alongside my colleague David Barber. So today we're just going to give you a chance to find out a little bit more about the programme, a little bit more about GCU, and I'll be working my way through about 20 or so slides over the next hour or so, but there will be plenty of time for questions, and you can just ask questions in the chat box, and Hannah can pass on anything to me as we go along. If you're listening to the recording, then you can get in touch with me as programme leader via the admissions at GCU as well, if you have any specific questions that aren't answered by the webinar. So we are going to start by looking at Glasgow Caledonian University and just the broader picture of what this university stands for and how we are structured. So it's a large multicultural university. It has world-leading research, specifically in health. Our School of Health has some fantastic results for our research, and it's got a very high impact in the world of health and nursing. We have 4 schools within the university, and the MSc in pre-registration nursing is in the School of Health and Life Sciences, and it's situated here in Glasgow, and this is a face-to-face programme in our Glasgow campus. So the MSc programme is part of the overall pre-registration nursing education delivery at GCU, and we are alongside a BSc 3-year degree, BSc honours 4-year degree at GCU, but the MSc that I'm going to be talking about today is a 2-year 4-month programme that takes you via 4,600 hours of preparation towards nursing registration with the Nursing and Midwifery Council in the UK, and it also at the end of it provides you with a Masters in Nursing Studies. The programme is split 50-50. There are 2,300 hours of academic preparation, and there are 2,300 practice placement hours that you will undertake as part of this programme. So moving on to the next slide. This programme allows graduates from a huge range of backgrounds, everything from teaching to psychology to engineering and business. It allows anyone with a 2-2 or above, so an honours degree or above, to join us to then undertake the master's programme. That educational preparation is a requirement for registration as a registered adult nurse in the UK. It's only an adult nursing qualification. In many countries, this is considered to be a general nursing qualification, but within the UK, it's an adult nursing qualification. So the programme itself aims to develop you as graduate nurses who can deliver safe, effective, person-centred care specifically to the adult population. But it is transferable internationally with appropriate ratification by nursing registration bodies across the globe. But you would be registered as an adult nurse in the UK when completed. When we talk about the education you receive, it's not just learning about how to nurse, but it gives you broader critical thinking skills, theoretical knowledge that underpins nursing practice, as well as the practical skills and competencies that allow graduates from the programme to give that really very high quality evidence-based care that's centered around the values that are spoken about in our nursing interviews that are specific to this compassionate nursing care that is very central to what we want to provide for our patients. So you will be able to, by the end of your 2 years and 4 months in the programme, have that ability to meet the needs of individuals, of their families, and more broadly within the communities that they live in a local way. You'll have to, will really contextualise this as your placements will all be within Greater Glasgow and Clyde, just near the university. But we will always give you that sense of the fact that nurses are a national community within the NHS and other providers within the UK, but also part of the global community of nurses across the world. So you will have that contextualisation both locally, nationally and globally as part of your programme. We require education at a minimum of a second class honours degree in order that you are prepared for the level of study and the level of assessment that will be undertaken as part of your master's qualification. So that honours degree has prepared you to write at a high academic level, and master's study will take you up a further level to what we call, within the Scottish Credit and Qualifications Framework, level 11 study. And in addition to that, a requirement of the Nursing and Midwifery Council within the UK is that that all nurses are able to communicate clearly in a high standard of English. And that means that applicants whose education hasn't been conducted in a country where the first language is English will, in addition to having certificated education in English within their own country, they will also be required to undertake international English language testing and scoring at a 7 or above in all elements of that English language testing, except in writing where a 6.5 is permitted, but the average must be 7 or above overall. That can be undertaken in up to 2 sittings, and scores can be combined across the elements in order to achieve that. And that's a non-negotiable professional requirement for all people who enter nursing within the UK. In addition to that, because of the nature of nursing, there is a requirement of demonstration of numeracy. So there needs to be maths at what we call National 5, GCSE, standard grade, at that kind of high school level. And that maths needs to be achieved at a pass grade so that you can demonstrate sufficient numeracy. Obviously, if you have higher level study in maths as a component of your degree, then that would be absolutely acceptable as well. Because you're going to be coming and undertaking study at quite a high level, we need to see evidence of recent assessed study as well as your degree study. If your degree hasn't been completed within the past 5 years, then some sort of successful study would need to be demonstrated within that time. We also require evidence of digital literacy, and the fact that you've managed to negotiate your way to this webinar and to join this webinar shows me that you have an element of digital literacy, but we would look to assess that as a component of your actual interviewing process, because all interviews and preparation for interview are conducted online, and we have a number of online activities that we ask you to undertake it prior to interview for the program. So that kind of covers our entry requirements. The only other thing I would want to stress as part of our entry requirements is that, as I say, we take you from all fields of work and professional preparation, but what we're not permitted to do is to take people who have already been prepared as adult registered nurses in another programme of study. And that is part of the nursing and midwifery's specification for this particular programme. It's a pre-registration nursing programme. So once you have completed your degrees, you will be registered with the Nursing and Midwifery Council. This just is a bit of a collage of pictures of some of our previous graduates at various stages of their education, undergraduate students in their final stages of their parties, celebrating that they have completed their programmes. In the top right-hand corner, we have our new Chancellor at the university, who will be taking our first November graduates through their graduation ceremonies very soon. I can confirm that I was signing off some of our graduates today, ready for registration as nurses, and they will go out into the working world any day now. And then the first graduations for our current master's programme will be it'll be in the very end of November this year. And if you were successful in joining our programme, it would be the graduation ceremonies would be the November after the May when you would complete your programmes. Okay. So if you're here and you're watching the webinar, what we want to do is we want to give you a sense of why GCU, Glasgow Caledonian University, is right for you, and why nursing at Glasgow Caledonian is right for you. And there are a number of reasons kind of listed on this slide here. The first thing, and I think the most important thing as far as I'm concerned, is that we will share a common set of values if you're joining Glasgow Caledonian. So we base our interviewing process, we base our sort of general kind of structure of our programs around the values that are at the core of our curriculum. So those values link alongside things such as the 6 C's that many of you have already been aware of, that are central to the NHS's values. So that commitment to quite an intense programme of study, and the compassionate nursing care that's very important to us. That support in your developing that culture of courageousness to stand up for and advocate for the clients that you'll be caring for, and that competence that we will build in you as part of this programme. Central to your abilities as nurses, we will capitalise on your existing communication skills, and we'll really build those to make you excellent communicators as nurses, to support your patients in a compassionate way. And all of that will allow you to engage in care for patients across a very broad range of healthcare settings that will be you'll have experience of as part of your programme. So you will gain experience in situ, in 8 different clinical settings as a minimum in your program, and they'll be broad from everything from caring for people in their own homes to undertaking care in critical care settings, as well as more acute and more long-term settings for patients. So you have this really broad oversight of that. In addition to your practice education in these placements, you'll also undertake a blended learning approach, which means that we will use a virtual learning environment to help you to broaden your ideas and broaden the resources that you'll have at your fingertips. You'll engage in discussion boards online, you'll undertake asynchronous learning and largely synchronous learning in tutorials. We don't have a lot of very large group sessions that you undertake, but groups of up to sort of 30 or so students in a classroom is kind of our standard structure, but often learning in much smaller groups of 6 or fewer within clinical simulation settings. And you'll be working in these small groups, exchanging ideas, putting into context the theory that you have addressed either prior to learning, or putting into context the experiences that you've had in placement, reflecting on those and really seeing the relevance of your learning. You'll learn with each other, other master's students, and you'll also learn with other fields of nursing, where you will have some shared learning modules where you'll learn with nurses who are learning to be mental health nurses, learning disability nurses, or child field nurses, because as adult nurses, you will come across people across the lifespan, people with mental health problems, people with learning disabilities, and it's important that you have insight into the differences in the sorts of care that they need, and the differences in terms of their particular individual needs. So you'll have shared learning across fields of nursing, and you'll also have interprofessional education. So you'll have shared learning with people in the School of Health, which incorporates things like physiotherapy, occupational therapy, and social work, for instance. So you'll have modules where you're learning about team working and about interdisciplinary work, when we have interprofessional education modules. And I'll give you a little bit of a rundown of the actual modules that the program incorporates later on in this webinar. You'll have lots of service user involvement in your education through things as simple as at an interview stage, our service users that work with us have actually helped to design questions for you to ensure that we're recruiting the right kind of applicants to the programme. But also we have co-creation of case studies, etc., that you'll work on in your tutorial environments or in simulated healthcare settings as we go through the programme in preparation for placement. While we don't have international practice placements at the moment within the programme, that's something that we are hoping to develop further as we go forward. And we certainly look to consider the context of any of your learning, not just on a local basis, but also on a wider basis. So looking at the application of these in practice. What you'll see in that photograph down there in the bottom right hand side, that's one of our previous students out in a placement in Malawi, where they were able to undertake a practice placement in that setting. At the moment, due to restrictions that were placed on us after the emergence of COVID, we haven't yet been able to establish appropriate links for practice placements for the master's programme at the moment. But that is, as I say, something that we're hoping to develop further going forward. but you will have the opportunity, certainly every single year of the programme we have lots of international students on the programme, when we really do look to capitalise on international perspectives on the topic areas that we consider within our classes, etc. And because we're working in such small groups, it's really easy to get a voice as somebody with a range of perspectives on the relevance of the nursing education that we're undertaking as part of this. Down at the bottom there of that list, we see that volunteering and extracurricular activities. We have so many clubs and societies that are part of the GCU experience, and we have, as you come for induction in January, if you're successful in joining the programme, there is an induction period and what we call the refreshers fair. So the new students to the programmes have the opportunity to get some insight into the sorts of clubs and societies that are open for them to join. And we very much encourage students coming onto the programme to make use of the opportunities that are there to meet other students across the university through these kind of more social activities. And we do have an International Students Association as an example of one of these. Then they organise lots of social activities and lots of chances to meet other students coming into GCU over that time. So let's have a look. Sorry. Moving on to the next slide. So if we are talking about the curriculum that you'll be undertaking at the moment, the currently validated curriculum, there are kind of central themes that are required for nurse education within the UK. So the Nursing and Midwifery Council, we often refer to them just as the NMC. The NMC has a set of standards for pre-registration nursing education. And our current programme, which is going through a programme review at the moment, will be revalidated and reapproved, I should say, by the NMC this year. We're bringing that back to them just to ensure that it meets the standards for nurse education. And we incorporate the Chief Nursing Officer for Scotland's 2030 vision into that. So that really has a focus on meeting the needs of a diverse population, ensuring that personalised and person-centred care is really ensured for all the individuals within our care, and that we think about the kind of the focus of healthcare within Scotland as well as within the national perspective, that NMC perspective. And then the GCU Centre for Living, the research themes that we focus on are quite diverse, look at the needs of people with long-term conditions, older adults, non-communicable diseases, and just general evidence-based practice. So we make sure that that is embedded within our curriculum. And at the core of that are you, the prospective students, making sure that you have that kind of prioritization. We look to prioritize you as individuals and ensure that you are getting the most out of our core curriculum. So we're making sure that we're making sure that you as student nurses get that development through these themes that I mentioned, but that your needs are considered. So we have excellent support for students who are able to sort of communicate with us as your personal tutors. So as your program lead, I would also be your personal tutor, and I would accompany you on your journey through the 3 years. And that would be me being able to sort of support you on your journey, identify if you have any specific needs, and be able to liaise with any support services as required. So we, as a university, as well as prioritising you as students, we have a philosophy which is that we support and we aim to achieve and support the development of the common good. So our curriculum and our philosophy is very much aimed at improving the lives of others in society. And so that common well-being of others in society. So Glasgow Caledonian University has lots of outreach into communities, and as nurses, even as student nurses, you'll have the opportunity to improve the lives of people in society through improving their mental, social, physical and spiritual well-being. So we're very much, that's at the core of what our drive is to do within the programme. So in order to do that, I spoke about having our service users involved, and what we aim to do is to, with the sort of support of people who use healthcare services, is develop real life scenarios for you to work through as components of the modules that you'll undertake. And as you build your knowledge, your understanding, your expertise, and your experience over the 2 years and 4 months in the programme, we will increase the challenges that we put forward for you within our programmes. So we start with developing your skills and your abilities at a fundamental level, and then we build on those in the next year, and then we take you through some quite complex scenarios and complex expectations of your developing and increasing independence as you go out into practice, so that by the time you complete the programme, you are confident, independent practitioners who are able to fully embed yourself in the nursing and professional workplace. So to do this, I said that you have shared learning with other individuals. So all 4 fields of nursing within the UK are considered distinct, and you will register as adult registered nurses, but you will work with the nurses that support children and young people, often referred to as child field nurses. You'll work with mental health student nurses and learning disability student nurses, so that you have insight into all 4 fields of practice. And the activities that you undertake will be designed alongside people with learning disabilities, children and young people, and people with mental health issues. This co-production of these learning activities is really important to us, and sometimes even co-teaching of these learning activities. What you're seeing in some of these slides is some of the individuals, some of the service users that came and joined us during programme development, but have also come along and joined us during assessment activities such as health fairs and other activities like that, or indeed objective structured clinical examinations. They'll be there for things like that as well. When you are learning your skills, we obviously want you to understand the theoretical basis for what you undertake, and we want you to be very critical of the evidence base that supports what you do. But nursing is a very practical domain. It's a very practical profession. So therefore, we have a simulation centre where you will have the opportunity to undertake clinical activities in a safe setting, where you are able to build your skills in a way that helps you to build your confidence without fearing adverse repercussions of where you might make an error. So you will have lots of time in our interprofessional simulation centre, where you will engage in simulated clinical activities using each other as participants, for instance, to develop your communication skills. But sometimes we will use mannequins, which are potentially low fidelity mannequins, like the one that you see, that group of students and facilitator leaning over there, where the mannequin can have a particular set of tasks carried out on it. So that mannequin there allows students to practice cardiopulmonary resuscitation activities. At the same time, we may, as you progress in the program, move on to using high fidelity simulation mannequins. So these mannequins can have their blood pressure taken, their heart rate taken, they can talk, they can have respond to interventions that you undertake with them, and you can see this in real time as you're working with them. So that nursing care you provide, you can see the impact of that on them. That simulation center allows you to build your confidence, build your skills, so that you can then go out into practice and not be as concerned that I've never done this before. You've undertaken things through simulation, and you can then build your competence with real people in real life settings once you've had a chance to reflect on the components of the skills, to analyze what you understand about them, and to really make a plan for how you can apply that in a real world setting. I spoke about interprofessional learning. As nurses, you will be working with a huge range of disciplines, everything from doctors to, physiotherapists, to dietitians, to a huge range of other professions. And what we have as part of our pre-registration master's programme suite within Glasgow Caledonian is 3 other professions who are undertaking an accelerated programme of preparation for their profession. So in this case, the MSc Physiotherapy, the MSc Occupational Therapy, and the MSc Social Work. All 3 of these are pre-registration programs like yours that lead to registration with the relevant professional body. And those individuals in your second year of education in the MSc, those individuals will undertake an interprofessional working module with you, looking at team working in the context of healthcare practice. So it gives you a chance to really understand each other's roles. And it's quite a unique selling point of the Glasgow Caledonian University programme, that because we have this broad suite of health related disciplines working within the School of Health, we have the ability for you to really get to know each other at a pre-registration level and become accustomed to working together as you would need to do out in practice. So it's quite a useful module, and we have some quite innovative methods of assessment of your skills so that you feel that confidence going out into working together. Okay, so I've talked a little bit about shared modules, interprofessional modules, skills teaching within the interprofessional suite. Just want to give you an idea of the structure of the programme as it's planned to be held over the 2.5 years that you're with us, the 2 years, 4 months you're with us. Within GCU, we have 3 trimesters. So this programme commences in trimester B. So in trimester B, which is from January until April, there are theoretical modules and also practice modules, which I'll talk about a little bit more as we go forward. In trimester C, from May until early September, we have purely practice-based modules in a variety of settings. And each year at the end of those practice-based modules, you will be signed off for each part of the programme. So your academic assessor will check that you have completed all the required parts of your programme so far. So part 1 of the programme is trimester B and trimester C of 2025. And then at the end of September 2025, you'll be signed off to move into part 2 of the programme, and that will be the start of trimester A. So trimester A is purely theoretical modules, and we'll talk about the names of the modules as we go forward. They're purely theoretical modules that take you right the way up until December, and you always get 2 weeks of holidays over Christmas. That can be guaranteed at least. And then the whole thing starts all over again and you're into year 2. And from January until April, you have a combination of theory modules and practice. And then in part 2, the trimester C, from May to September, you would be out in purely practice-based modules before signing off part 2 of your programme. After part 2 of your programme, it all starts over again in trimester A, so September to December of part 3 of the programme is purely theoretical modules, and then you would have a final set of practice-based modules from January until about May of your part 3 of your programme. Interspersed within these trimesters, there are short periods of holidays, and these are set and they can't be changed. So you always have about 2 weeks of holiday around the end of December, so incorporating the Christmas period. And there are 1 or 2 week periods of holiday in each trimester thereafter. But there are no long traditional student holidays over the summer period, because the master's programme requires 2,300 hours of academic study, but also 2,300 hours of practice. And so in order to achieve that, you have long summer periods where you're in a number of practice placements. So those holiday dates, when you commence the programme, should you join us in January, when you commence the programme, you will be given the holiday dates that are set at that time. And so I would recommend that you do not book any holidays for 2025 or 2026 until you find out what those holiday dates are. And if you have any queries about them in advance of joining us in January, please do get in touch and we will look to provide you with as much information as we possibly can. Okay. So I said there are theory modules, there are practice modules. This is a list of the modules that you will undertake. So these modules or courses are usually approximately 11 weeks in length. And the first 2 modules that we would undertake commencing in trimester A of 2025 are the Art and Science of Nursing, which is a theoretical module which helps to develop your understanding of what nursing practice means, what the values and priorities in nursing practice really are, and how nursing practice can be applied and optimized across broad kind of global and cultural settings. The Developing Nursing Skills module actually contextualizes nursing and develops fundamental nursing skills, first of all through theory and simulation, and then through your first practice placement. And that would be the first 6 weeks of the module would be in theory, and then the second 6 weeks would be in that first practice placement. So by March of 2025, you would have your first nursing placement in a nursing setting. So that then that you would have trimester B, which would be a practice learning experience part 2. And that would incorporate 2 different practice learning experiences with a period of holiday, hopefully in between them, just so you can catch your breath. And then you would move into part 2 of the programme, where you would undertake this interprofessional education module, interprofessional working context, organisations and practice, and also an applied ethics module at that time. So you would have those 2 modules that would be theoretical to do with nursing and broader ethics in healthcare. And in addition to that, you would have a module called person-centred adult nursing that looks at commonly occurring long-term and acute conditions that are often seen in nursing practice, and looks at the theoretical basis for providing care for those. In trimester B, you would then go on to study a module called Global Health, which looks at health across sort of local, national and international settings, incorporating an understanding of the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. And alongside that theoretical module, you would undertake another skills-based module, which would enhance and consider your existing nursing skills and how to apply them for more complex nursing settings and more complex patients and complex needs, and develop your complex develop your competencies, in nursing by then applying them in a practice learning experience. You would then have a practice learning experience over trimester C, and that would be 2 different settings before moving into your nursing care in leading and managing complex care in adult nursing module in trimester A of your final year. Alongside that, you would be undertaking a dissertation as you're completing your final year of the programme, and that dissertation aims to really showcase your abilities that you've developed in your academic writing at master's level, and to prepare you for actually submitting publications to nursing journals and professional publications, and presenting those in a sort of a professional setting, a conference type setting. So that dissertation module is quite an authentic setting, an authentic shared learning module. Again, across you'll learn alongside the other pre-registration professions within GCU, and you'll get that opportunity to sort of prepare work for publication in a professional way. And then your final after that Christmas, you would go out into practice to 2 final placements, a critical care type placement, and then a final placement where you would be expected to have a prolonged period embedded in a clinical setting, where you'd really adopt the role of the registered nurse in effectively independent practice. So lots of different diverse modules and lots of opportunities to really find where your enthusiasm for nursing lies, because nursing is such a broad profession with so many opportunities to practice. The practice that you get will, as you can see, be long and diverse, and it will be in either home-like settings, independent or third sector or charitable settings, or in inpatient acute services. When you're in practice, you'll be supervised by practice supervisors, by practice assessors, who are registered nurses, and they will assess you actually within the practice setting against a clear set of practice criteria, platforms for practice, and they'll also teach and assess you in a very broad range of skills as laid down by the NMC's education requirements. They are supported in practice by practice education facilitators who help them to ensure that you have a consistent and really dependable range of experiences and a very measured set of practice assessment criteria, and that your assessment moves up from level to level as you progress through the different parts of the programme. These settings are all within Greater Glasgow and Clyde, and they are actually set up and arranged by our placements officers. So it's not something that you would have to go out and arrange. They will be potentially up to an hour or up to an hour of travel from where the university is located. That's an hour on public transport. If you have your own transport, it may be less than that. But that is within Greater Glasgow and Clyde, so quite a range of settings, but they should all be accessible within about an hour from the university. Obviously, we do try to locate them as close as possible to your home if you're living within Greater Glasgow and Clyde, but if you're living outside Greater Glasgow, it is your responsibility to ensure that you can access these placements. Now, these placements can be they're usually caring for adults, and you will be providing nursing care for patients of any gender and any biological sex. So you have to acknowledge and be able to provide intimate care for all genders as part of this programme. When you are on your practice placements, the shift patterns that you'll undertake will vary, but you will be expected to mirror the shift patterns of the nurses who are teaching and assessing you. So you'll be expected to perhaps undertake 12 to 12.5 hour shifts, often 7 o'clock in the morning till 7 or 7:30 at night. There will be weekend working, there will be public holiday working, some night shift working, although the majority of your shifts will be on day shift. But other settings, for instance, settings in community settings, may well be a Monday to Friday 9 to 5 setting. We usually require you to undertake anywhere between sort of 36 and 42 hours of practice per week. When you are in a practice placement, depending on what other commitments you have in terms of, sometimes you'll have a day of university attendance alongside it, so we expect slightly less practice attendance. If students have a SAS bursary, so if they're Scottish resident Scottish students, if they have a SAS bursary, then if there are travel expenses associated with bursary, then anything additional over what it would normally cost you to travel to university can be reclaimed from SAS if that exceeds more than £5 per day. As you can see, the practice setting has quite kind of rigid requirements because you're expected to match the shift pattern of the nurses that teach and assess you. So if you are working part-time alongside your university study, which many students do, it cannot be in a setting which has set hours. So your part-time work, paid work, employment outside university's requirements, your part-time work cannot have hours that are not adjustable around your requirement to attend university and your requirement to attend flexible shift patterns within practice. So it's important that you understand that. However, many of our nursing students here undertake bank or agency employment, specifically in healthcare, and that allows flexible working, and it also allows you to capitalise on your developing confidence and skills within a healthcare setting. So it's not that you can't work part-time alongside the programme. Most students do. As part of your admission to the programme, there's an expectation that you have that you're healthy enough to undertake safe care of patients, which means that caring for patients will not adversely impact your health, and any health condition that you have will not adversely impact your ability to care for patients. That doesn't mean that you have to not have a long-term condition, but we have to be able to make reasonable adjustments to your teaching and to your assessment that will allow you to safely care for people. So in order to do this, we have an occupational health screening, and any admission to the programme is conditional on occupational health saying that you are healthy enough and that sufficient reasonable adjustments can be made to allow you to safely practice. In addition to your good health, you also need to have sufficient character to be able to be trustworthy and to be able to safely care for people in practice. So if you have any brushes with the law, be they cautions or uh, convictions, or if you're charged with any offences, then we would need to know. And so you will be expected to complete PVG clearance or local police clearance. So that's protection of vulnerable groups clearance, which will check whether or not you are safe to provide care based on your any convictions or charges or cautions that you have had from the police. If you are convicted of a crime, then a panel within the university will actually consider that charge and any supporting evidence surrounding it, and they'll risk assess whether it would still be appropriate for you to be offered a place or two for you to remain on the programme. But often any charges can result in students being required to leave the programme if there's considered to be any risk to patients associated with that. So that protection of vulnerable groups clearance requires that prior to admission to the programme, you admit to any sort of criminal charges that have been ever brought against you. No convictions are considered spent, even if they occurred when you were very young or a very long time ago. And the panel would then consider what these convictions are and would risk assess accordingly. However, if you fail to disclose any existing charges, then this would be considered that it was a deception or an attempt at deception, as all charges will be noted when we actually complete disclosure with Disclosure Scotland. So it's important that you discuss these prior to commencing the programme so that we don't adversely affect your ability to take up any offer that you're given. When I spoke about your good health and character for the programme, I said that we would make any reasonable adjustments to practice under the Equalities Act. It is an absolute requirement, and it's a commitment that we have as a programme, that just because somebody has a disability or a long-term condition, it's not in any way an adverse barrier to them achieving the most that they possibly can. So for that reason, we only need to ensure that we have made all possible reasonable adjustments for you to support you. But you should be realistic about your capacity with those adjustments in place to provide safe and effective care. And we expect you to have a commitment to the people in your care, and so to disclose appropriately where reasonable adjustments are required. So if you feel that you need to discuss anything like that, please do get in touch. We very much hope that disability is not a barrier to you achieving, as long as you can provide safe and effective care. So if you are applying for the programme with admission to the programme in January 2025, please do contact admissions as soon as possible. If there are any specific queries about the programme, admissions can then refer them to me as programme lead or to anybody within the team if I'm not available. It is a very popular programme. We have literally hundreds of applicants for the programme. And so there are only a limited number of places available due to the commitments we have to providing high quality practice placements and high quality teaching within practice. So get your application in as early as you can. And even if you don't make it in time for admissions to the programme, we may be able to offer you a place on the waiting list for the programme. And we're keen to extend that offer to as many people as possible. So that's been a whistle-stop tour of the programme. We've got a few minutes left for any questions that anybody might have. You can put them into the chat box that we have here, and I'd be delighted to answer as many of those as possible as we come towards the end of the talk. Yep.
Hi Ingrid, thank you so much. That was a very interesting presentation. So thank you. I hope everybody found it as interesting as I did. So I wanted just to ask quickly, there was a question that came in from a student. So I've just highlighted it here. They say, good morning, what are the breaks like within the 2 years of study? And if it is 28 months instead of 24, then around what time graduation will be for those who start in January 2025?
So the programme itself is 28 months in total. So it would take you to about May of, that would be 2027. Does that sound right? So that'd be 28 months from starting in the January of 2025. There are 1 to 2 week breaks interspersed throughout the programme. So there is a sort of 2 week break in May of 2025. There would then be a further 1 week break sometime around July. I can't give the exact dates of those right now. And you would have a further week in September and then a further 2 weeks in December. And that pattern would repeat itself in the second year. While you would complete, as long as everything goes to plan for you and you don't have any sickness, absence, etc., that delays completion of the programme, you would complete your programme in the end of May in 2027. And at that point, you can go for registration. So you would become a registered nurse very shortly after that. However, the graduation ceremonies are in November. Now, for students who are paying their fees, what I would say is that you only pay 24 months of fees, because that final period in practice, those 4 months in practice, is purely practice. There's no classes, there's no, while there's obviously personal tutor support and meetings with me, you wouldn't have any further teaching other than in practice, and so there's no charge for that for any students who are paying their own fees. The reason that we have this 28-month programme is to ensure the very high quality and range of placement experiences, and that really ensures that you're best prepared for nursing practice going forward. I believe some other programs only have 24 because they credit experience prior to your nurse education. But what we would say is that every single one of your placements that contributes to your nurse registration within this program, you will have been taught and assessed by registered nurses against a very clear set of teaching and assessment criteria, which may not have been achieved in any other types of healthcare experience that you might have had. So that relevance and that level of education will be very much higher. Do you think that answers the question, Hannah?
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Ingrid. Okay, so just to say to everybody, that is us now at the end of the webinar. That's been a full hour, so thank you, Ingrid. I can see that there's obviously been quite a few questions throughout about the IELTS requirement for the programme. So I've done my best to answer them as much as possible throughout the course of the presentation. And I've pinned a message to the top of the chat box just to say that we are only able to accept academic IELTS or OET for entry to this course due to the accreditation by the Nursing and Midwifery Council, and this is what is required of us in order to accept students onto the programme.
Yeah.
If anyone has any further queries, and I can see that there's a couple of questions in there about criminal convictions as well, could I please ask that you email into inquiries@gcu.ac.uk, and any of the additional questions or queries that you have will be picked up there. And if you need anything else from us, that's the best place to send any queries to as well. And I think aside from that, Ingrid, I don't know if you have anything lastly to add.
There is a question about being an alumnus of GCU, do you need IELTS? So for students that have met a 3-year residence within the UK and been educated at higher education level within the UK, then we would be able to consider waiving the IELTS requirements, but it's 3-year residence within the UK alongside higher education, completion of their higher education within the UK.
Perfect, that's great, thanks Ingrid. I've just dropped the email address to contact in the chat box for anyone that needs it. Just to confirm, a slight error on my part, is actually studentinquiries@gcu.ac.uk for any queries for
Fees,
anyone,
etc.
Anything to do with fees, etc. Oh, Ingrid, there's just one last question there.
Oh, missed that one.
During placement, is there payment for work period? I think that's a no.
No, it's the placement. You are what we call supernumerary, which means that you're not actually a paid member of staff, which means that you're being taught and assessed rather than working.
Perfect. And just to confirm as well, I can see one last question in the Q&A. When is the deadline for IELTS submission for 2025 January entry? So this will be the additional documents deadline of the 1st of November. And there's possibility for this to potentially be extended, but the official deadline is the 1st of November for additional documentation, okay?
Okay, yep.
And I think, one last one, please. How long after application will one be invited for interview or not?
We would hope to have interview dates for anybody who's currently applied. We would hope to have interview dates for you within the next 3 weeks.
Perfect. Okay, so I think we'll leave it there because we're now over time. Thank you again, Ingrid. That's been great. And again, anyone has any further queries, we'll also send out the recording of this webinar, so you'll be able to access all of the information again should you need it. But thank you so much, everybody, and hopefully see you in January.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.